Perhaps you have felt this before. You are still there, still sitting beside someone, yet their heart has long since left. You wait for a glance, a touch, a word of care, but all you receive is silence. And still, you remain not because you are weak, but because you have loved, trusted, and given too much. Until the bond no longer supports you, but begins instead to suffocate your breath. Stoicism does not urge us to pretend we do not hurt, nor does it teach us to deny emotion. It teaches us to face the truth, to see clearly what lies within our control and what must be released. When we cling to what is already gone, we trap ourselves in the cycle of suffering. But when we return to ourselves, we discover the strength that was always there. The power to decide how we respond, how we heal, and how we continue to live. And that is where today's journey begins. 1. Accept reality. Release what does not belong to you. There is a very human habit most of us fall into. Replaying past moments in our minds and imagining that if we had acted differently, spoken differently, the outcome might have changed. You may have asked yourself, if only I had been more patient, if only I had held on harder, if only I had been better. And in each of these if-onlys, you glimpse a faint hope that the relationship might not have ended. But the truth is, the past is closed, and what has already happened is no longer in your hands. That is the moment you must learn to let go of what lies beyond your control. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that true power does not lie in what others do, but in how we govern our thoughts and our responses. The words seem simple, yet when applied to heartbreak, they become a compass. You cannot force someone to love you, nor can you keep them when their heart has already departed. The only thing you can do is see clearly. I have power over how I love, how I live, and how I heal. Everything beyond that circle, I must learn to release. Letting go does not mean surrendering or admitting defeat. On the contrary, it is the bravest act you can choose for yourself. Imagine clutching a rope that is burning. The tighter you grip, the more your hands burn. Letting go is not weakness, but the decision to preserve yourself. To cling to someone who has chosen to leave is to set yourself on fire just to hold what cannot be held. Release is the most practical and compassionate way to love yourself. We often confuse letting go with giving up. Giving up is when you lose faith in life, when you abandon your values. But letting go is when you stop fighting in a battle whose outcome is already decided. You no longer seek to win a game that was never yours to control. Letting go is the act of choosing peace over suffering. And that is not a sign of weakness, but a mark of maturity. Stoicism teaches that when you clearly divide what can be controlled from what cannot, you will find freedom, like autumn, when leaves fall from the tree. The tree does not scream, it does not resist. It lets them go, because that is nature's law. And then spring comes, and new buds appear. So too with you, when you embrace reality and allow what no longer belongs to you to pass away, you create space for new life to begin. Instead of asking why the other person no longer cares, ask why you are still trying to control what was never yours to command. Instead of waiting for them to return so you can heal, realize that healing began the moment you decided you no longer needed them to be whole. That is the choice of rebirth, the choice of returning to yourself. And it is the first door that opens into emotional freedom. 2. Do not idealize the one who hurt you. When a relationship ends, especially when you are the one left behind, memory rarely tells the truth. It is like a clever editor, replaying only the best scenes from a love story already over. You remember their smile, the late-night conversations, the whispered promises that felt eternal. But at the same time, memory blurs the moments you have forgotten, the cold silences, the times you felt small in the very love you gave. This is a subtle trap the mind creates to make you believe what you lost was perfect. The truth is, you no longer love the real person, but the version your memory has reshaped. That version erases all the flaws and leaves only the bright colors for you to cling to. It is no longer love, but attachment to an idealized image. And it is this idealization that keeps you stuck, unable to move on, because you are not only letting go of a person, but of an illusion. Epictetus once said that people suffer not from events, but from the way they interpret them. When you keep repainting your ex in soft colors, you are choosing a distorted interpretation. You are turning a real person with limits, mistakes, and neglect into a flawless figure that never existed outside your mind. Each time you do this, you not only hold on to them, but also bind yourself to a fictional past. What is necessary is to see things as they are. No embellishing, no excuses, no turning the one who hurt you into a savior. Honesty can be painful, but it is also the greatest kindness you can offer yourself. Admit this: if someone repeatedly made you feel insecure, diminished, or unworthy, then what you miss is not love, but familiarity. You do not truly need them, you only fear the emptiness after they are gone. Stoicism teaches that compassion does not mean denying truth. Kindness does not mean closing your eyes to harm. When you stop idealizing the past, you do not become bitter. You are protecting your heart from being deceived again, this time not by them, but by yourself. And that is a crucial step toward breaking free from the cycle of self-inflicted pain. Ask yourself, am I missing the real person or the image I painted of them? Am I wishing for their return, or only for the comfort of what was once familiar? These questions are not pleasant, but they free you from clinging to a ghost. Healing does not come from denying memory, but from facing the whole picture, both what was beautiful and what wounded you. When you dare to face the full truth, illusion no longer drags you backward. You begin to open space for a new chapter, where you are no longer the second choice in your own life, where you no longer repeat the wound by worshiping the one who caused it. And only then does letting go truly become an act of liberation. 3. Keep distance to regain clarity. When a relationship has just ended, emotions often remain raw, even overwhelming. In those moments, closeness becomes poison. Staying near your ex, whether in person or through social media, only prolongs the pain. You may tell yourself that just a glance at a photo, just a check of their status, just knowing where they are, will bring relief. But in reality, each act is adding fuel to a smoldering fire. You are not healing, you are feeding the wound. Like standing in the rain, hoping your clothes will dry, the more you cling to closeness, the harder peace will be to find. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that life must be built action by action, step by step. This means you cannot rebuild your strength if your mind still orbits someone else's life. Distance is not only physical, it is psychological. It is a declaration to yourself. I choose to step away from chaos to regain clarity. Because when you are too close, you do not see the truth of the relationship, you only see the blur created by emotion. Distance allows you to see with sober eyes. It is like stepping back from a painting. Too close, you only see tangled strokes. Step back, and the whole picture emerges. Likewise, when you pause a contact, stop rereading old messages like scripture. Stop searching for traces of them in every corner of your life. you begin to notice what you once ignored. You realize how many times you compromised just for peace. How often you shrank to make them comfortable, how many dreams you set aside to preserve a fading bond. Distance does not always mean vanishing entirely, though sometimes it does. It can simply mean boundaries. Not checking old texts as if they were sacred, not tracking every change on their page, not asking friends about them just to fill the silence. Each time you cut away one of these habits, you reclaim a piece of control you once gave away. Distance creates space, and space allows clarity to return. Imagine your mind as a room. When their image sits in the center, there is no space left for your own thoughts, no room for new dreams, no place for peace. But when you open a window, let new air and light in, the atmosphere changes. The noise fades, the air cools, and for the first time in a long while, you hear your own voice. That is the gift distance brings. Ask yourself, what is keeping me close to them when what I truly need is to be close to myself? If I gave myself a week, a month, or even just a day without their shadow in my mind, would I find calm again? The answer may scare you, but it is also the key to your freedom. You keep distance not because you no longer care, but because you care more about your peace. And only then can you return to being the whole person you were always meant to be. 4. Master your response. Do not dissect their behavior. One of the most dangerous mental traps after a breakup is the constant urge to analyze, dissect, and explain the other person's behavior. You ask yourself, why did they change so quickly? Why the silence? How could they turn cold when they were once so warm? You wake with these questions, you fall asleep with them, and each day you are pulled into a cycle with no end. The truth is, you do not suffer simply because of their actions, but because of how you interpret those actions. You attach meaning to their silence as proof you are not enough. You attach meaning to their leaving as proof you are unworthy. And it is this interpretation that becomes the root of your pain. Stoic philosophy pointed this out thousands of years ago. Epictetus said that people are not disturbed by events, but by the way they interpret them. Others may turn their backs, fall silent, or grow distant, but they cannot decide your worth. Only you can, through how you choose to respond. When you chase after answers, when you send desperate messages, when you torment yourself trying to explain their change, you are unconsciously placing your power in their hands. To master your response means to stop searching for reasons outside and turn inward. Picture yourself standing before a mirror. The mirror does not tell you whether you are beautiful or flawed. It only reflects what is already there. Others are the same. They cannot define you. They only reveal their own state. When they grow cold, that is their issue. When they walk away, that is their choice. What you must do is observe your emotions, acknowledge them, instead of letting them drag you into impulsive reactions. The pause between stimulus and response is where freedom begins. The Stoics emphasized creating this pause. When you see a post that stings, instead of collapsing, breathe deeply and remind yourself the feeling is only a passing wave. When they ignore your message, instead of leaping to the conclusion that you are unworthy, remind yourself that their action reflects their choice, not your value. Each time you hold that pause, you reclaim a piece of your inner freedom. Remember this: your dignity and self-respect do not depend on anyone else's gestures. You can be ignored and still remain composed. You can be left and still remain dignified. This is the Stoic strength, not numbness, but the ability to notice your emotions, accept their presence, yet refuse to let them mislead your course. The fewer impulsive reactions you give, the less power you hand to others. Instead of endlessly dissecting their behavior, ask yourself, does this reaction reflect the person I want to be? Or is it a desperate attempt to win back the attention of someone who has already gone? The answer may hurt, but it also liberates. Because when you master your response, you are no longer the victim of another's actions, you become the guide of your own life. And that is the true foundation of emotional maturity. 5. Redefine love. We grow up in a society that often ties love to possession and reciprocity. We are taught that love is something given to us by another, that we only truly have love when someone affirms it, praises us, or devotes themselves to us. This belief convinces us that if love is not returned, we are left empty-handed. Yet this is a distortion. Love is not an external gift handed out and withdrawn. True love is an energy already within you. It is how you live, how you treat the world, and how you treat yourself. The Stoics did not write much about romantic love in the modern sense, but they emphasized that to live with virtue, reason, and integrity is the highest calling. Seen through this lens, love is not a game of exchange or reward. True love is an act you give freely, born of the honesty of your heart, not a bargain for something in return. When someone you love leaves or cannot reciprocate, it does not strip your love of meaning. It does not lessen your worth. On the contrary, it proves that you are capable of loving, of offering care, devotion, and sincerity. If you understand love as an act of giving, then whether it is returned or not, you remain whole. You have fulfilled your part, and that is strength. The problem is that many remain in pain, not because they still love, but because they were not acknowledged. They want the person back not to love again, but to prove that what they gave once had value. But ask yourself, does love require validation from someone else to be real? The answer is no. Love is real the moment you live true to your heart. It needs no certificate, no stamp from another. To redefine love also means learning to love without possessing. You can say, I cared fully, I was present completely, I gave the best of myself, and now I leave with my dignity intact. That is not coldness, it is the highest expression of freedom. When love is no longer something you beg to receive, but a way you live each day, you stop fearing abandonment. If your worth exists only when someone chooses you, it will always be fragile. But if your worth arises from the way you choose to love with honesty, kindness, and courage, then it cannot be taken away. A relationship may end, but your capacity to love remains, and it will continue to flow toward the most important person of all, yourself. Remember, the love you once gave was not wasted. It proves that your heart is alive, capable of deep connection and devotion, and from this day forward, you can begin to direct that love inward. When you redefine love as giving rather than bargaining, loss no longer frightens you. For true love never disappears, it only changes direction, and in the end, it leads you back to yourself. 6. Do not confuse pain with attachment. After a relationship ends, what remains is not only emptiness, but also aching pain. That feeling can be so intense that we mistake it for proof of a bond unbroken. We believe that because we still hurt, love must still be alive, that because we still remember, the relationship cannot truly be over. But the truth is, pain is not a sign of love. It is often just the mind resisting the truth that a story has ended. The human mind has a natural tendency to seek meaning in what wounds us. When someone leaves, when silence replaces care, the emptiness grows unbearable. and we convince ourselves that pain must hold some deeper significance. We tell ourselves, if I hurt this much, it must be because this love was profound. Yet this line of thought is the prison that traps us. For if pain is the proof of love, then the only way to keep love alive is to continue feeding sorrow. And that stands against the very essence of love. Epictetus stressed that when events occur, we cannot change them, but we can always change how we see them. Applied to heartbreak, this shows us that pain does not always mean connection. Pain may simply mean you are clinging to an old story, refusing to turn the page. It is not evidence of living love, but of unbroken habit. Many remain in grief for years, not because the love still lives, but because they have allowed sadness to become part of their identity. They believe that letting pain fade would deny what once was. But in truth, releasing pain does not deny love, it honors it. For true love does not imprison you in suffering. It frees you to become your better self. You must dare to ask yourself plainly, do I still love this person? Or am I addicted to the feeling of longing? Is love truly present, or is it only the habit of absence? When the answer comes, you will see that pain is not the bond holding you to them, it is the chain binding you to the past. The Stoics did not deny pain. They accepted it as a natural part of life, but they never glorified it. They saw pain as a passing storm, fierce perhaps, unsettling, but destined to move on. You do not need to enshrine it to prove love. You need only acknowledge it, let it pass, and keep walking forward. When you stop mistaking pain for attachment, you can truly honor both yourself and the love that once was. You can remember with gratitude, but you no longer let pain dominate your present. And then you see clearly, love was once beautiful, but you do not need to hold on to suffering to prove it. What remains after all is not the chains of sorrow, but the freedom to love yourself more. 7. Look toward the person you are becoming. After a breakup, we are often haunted by what was lost. We look toward the one who left, toward what they carried away, and we convince ourselves that a part of our life ended with them. Many grieve not only the person they loved, but also the version of themselves they were while with them, believing that self will never return. But in truth, what you lost was not who you were, but the illusion that you could only live fully with them beside you. And this is the most dangerous mistake, for it keeps you chained to the past instead of facing forward. Stoic philosophy teaches us that instead of asking, "What have I lost?" we should ask, "Who can I become after this?" Marcus Aurelius once urged, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That reminder applies not only to virtue, but also to healing. Do not keep spinning in thoughts of what could have been. Focus instead on who you can become by learning from the pain. Loss, if seen rightly, is not merely an ending, but an invitation to return to yourself. In love, you may have abandoned many things. Dreams left unpursued, habits that once nourished you, or joys that once lifted your spirit. You may have made yourself smaller to fit the relationship, set aside opportunities to preserve peace, or given so much that you forgot you too were meant to receive. When love ends, all those sacrifices leave an emptiness, but that emptiness is also the space in which you rebuild. Begin with small steps. Perhaps reading a book you set aside, walking a road you once enjoyed, giving time to your body through exercise, or spending quiet mornings writing your thoughts. These are not just habits but declarations. I am not defined by what I lost. I am defining myself by what I choose to do today. Each small act becomes a brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. The truth is, the one who left may take with them a share of memories, but they cannot take your capacity to grow. The lessons remain. They force you to look inward, to face the limits you once ignored, and to learn how to lift yourself when no one else is there. That is the paradoxical gift of loss. It strips away illusions but gives back awakening. So instead of turning your gaze endlessly backward, ask yourself, who will I build from what remains? Not out of revenge, not to prove worth to another, but to use the energy once poured into a lost love and transform it into the foundation of a new path. The person you are becoming deserves your full attention, for that is your future, your hope, and your proof that you did not merely survive loss, you grew radiant from it. 8. Protect peace as your most precious possession. In life, there are many things we believe to be important. Love, work, the approval of others. But the more storms we endure, the clearer it becomes that the most valuable possession is not what comes from outside, but the peace within. Peace is not emptiness, not the absence of feeling, but the ground beneath everything else. With peace, you can think clearly, choose wisely, and live with true freedom. Without it, even if you hold everything else, life still feels unstable and weary. Yet peace does not arrive by itself, nor is it given by others. It must be protected daily through small but steady choices. After a breakup, the door of the heart often remains half open. Part of you still hopes they will return, recognize your worth, reignite the flame. And to keep that hope alive, you let them remain in your thoughts, in your habits, even in your actions. But each time you do this, you trade your peace for a fragile possibility that was never yours to hold. Seneca once wrote that no one is more unfortunate than the one who has never faced adversity, for they have never had the chance to prove their inner strength. This means that trials are what allow us to train calmness and guard our peace. After a breakup, the greatest trial is not their absence, but the battle to keep your heart from being consumed by chaos. And in this battle, you must learn to close the doors once left open for them, not out of hatred, but out of respect for yourself. Protecting peace may begin with simple acts. Stop rereading old messages. Stop checking their profile. Stop mentioning them in every conversation. Harder choices may follow ending contact, blocking them online, or refusing to entertain questions that reopen old wounds. Do not mistake these actions as extreme. They are merely fences guarding the fragile ground of your recovering soul. Picture your peace as a small flame. Each wise choice adds wood, making it brighter and warmer. But every time you allow them to reappear uninvited, you pour cold water on that fire. And then you wonder why you never feel at rest. To keep peace means learning to refuse what threatens it, even if it leaves you lonely for a moment. Peace is not loud, not dramatic. It does not resemble explosive joy, but it sustains you quietly, carrying you through each day with steadiness. It helps you sleep better, wake lighter, and depend less on others. When you place peace above all, you send yourself a powerful message. I matter enough to live a life of calm, even if I stand alone. And that is the strongest foundation for all that follows. 9. Create your own closure. One of the strongest desires after a breakup is the longing for a final conversation. We want the other person to explain why they changed, why they left, why what we cherished was not enough for them to stay. We believe that if only we could hear an honest confession, a clear reason, or a sincere apology, the pain would ease and letting go would be simpler. But the harsh truth is, such moments rarely come. And even when they do, they seldom bring the release we imagine. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself that we always have the power to remain silent in the face of what disturbs the soul. This means that instead of waiting for someone to offer you closure, you can choose to create it yourself. The truth is, someone who lacked the courage to face you while they were with you is unlikely to summon the courage to give you clarity after they leave. And if they were not honest with themselves, the answers you long for are unlikely to exist. Closure is not when they finally speak the last word. It is when you decide you no longer need that word to move on. Closure is not receiving a certificate declaring the love ended. It is when you write in your own mind, "I have walked through it and I choose to stop here." In that moment, you give yourself freedom. You are no longer bound to wait for what lies outside your reach. Many people wait for closure for months, even years, trapped in the cycle of speculation and fantasy. They build stories. Perhaps the other regrets. Perhaps there is a hidden reason. Perhaps one day the truth will come to light. But each time they indulge this, they delay their own healing. What they fail to see is that closure is not an external event, but an internal decision. Look back honestly. You already know enough to end it. You know what it feels like to wait, to face cold silences, to live within imbalance. Those experiences themselves are the explanation. You just resist accepting them. And acceptance, though painful, is the key to freedom. When you dare to say to yourself, "I will never know everything and that is enough," you close the door on the past. To create closure is also to rewrite your story. You are no longer the victim of a breakup without answers. You become the one who chose to step forward. You do not need an apology to forgive. You do not need a confession to let go. You need only the courage to grant yourself peace. And when you do, you realize closure was never a gift from another, but a strength that was always within you. 10. Choose truth over illusion. One of the greatest obstacles to letting go is that people cling to an imagined version of the other. You are not holding on to who they truly are, but to the image you built in your mind. Someone who will change, someone who will return, someone who will love you the way you wish. That hope gradually becomes a cage, trapping you in a future that will never arrive. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself to live in accordance with nature, that is, to accept things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Applied to love, this means facing the truth with courage. They are no longer here. They did not do what you hoped for, and their silence is itself an answer. To accept this truth may hurt, but it is a pain that frees. To cling to illusion may taste sweet for a moment, but it is a false sweetness that keeps you in the dark. Choosing truth means ceasing to live in what-ifs and beginning to live in what is. You stop asking whether they will return, and instead begin asking yourself what life can be when you no longer need them. That question is not comfortable, but it opens the path for you to actively write your next chapter. When you live with truth, you stop waiting and start creating. You stop dreaming and start being present. Letting go of illusion does not mean denying the love that once was. It only means you choose clarity over obscurity, reality over fantasy, and yourself over a dream that never formed. This is the final step toward reclaiming freedom. I believe that at some point, each of us has struggled to let go of someone who has already gone. I too once asked myself why I still hurt, still remembered, still wanted to hold on even when everything had ended. But over time I realized that what held me was not love, but fear of emptiness and the belief that if I let go, nothing would remain. In that moment, I learned that peace and freedom do not come from another staying, but from having the courage to face the truth and choose myself. The teachings of the Stoics remind me that true worth never lies in the hands of others, but in how I live, how I respond, and how I uphold dignity in adversity. For this reason, I no longer see separation as an ending, but as an invitation to return to myself stronger, clearer, and freer. If you find these reflections meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next content. Remember, what matters most is not how someone once loved you, but whether you have the courage to keep loving and respecting yourself after everything. And when you do that, you will see freedom was always in your hands. See you in the next video.